I would like to begin this intro. Normally you begin with the accolades of the writer, what they've published. But I had the good fortune to meet Kwame, I keep calling him Nana, back when he was getting his MFA in Syracuse, New York. It was a cold Thursday, I believe. And he came up to me, he was like, I've been teaching your book of poems. And when a fiction writer tells you they've been teaching your book of poems, you're like, and I just remembered how clear-eyed he was and how much of a sophisticated reader he was already as an MFA student. I was like, oh, this guy is gonna write the hell out of something. And here we are today with Chain Gang All-Stars, the author of Friday Black. So I always want to begin with just, sometimes you never know where you're going to be and who you're going to meet, but I knew when I met Nana back then that he was going to be here on one of these stages. So here's the official intro. Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is the New York Times bestselling author of Friday Black. His work has appeared in the New York Times Book Review, Esquire, the Paris Review, and elsewhere. He was a National Book Award Foundation 5 under 35 honoree, a winner of the Penn Gene Stein Book Award and the William Sarian International Prize for Writing, and a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle John Leonard Prize for the best first book, among many other honors. Raised in Spring Valley, New York, he now lives in the Bronx. Chain Gang All-Stars, the book we're here to discuss, and Nana has garnered praise from Raven Lalani to Kesey Lehman to George Saunders. Saunders, author of Liberation Day and 10th of December, wrote, Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is one of the most exciting young writers in America. His work is urgent, engaging, and wildly entertaining, and bold and politically electrifying. Read one page, any page, and you'll see what I mean. Raven Lalani, author of Luster, had this to say of Chain Gang All-Stars. Chain Gang All-Stars makes explicit how the spirit erodes as the body becomes currency. Adjei-Brenyah writes sharply about the economy of spectacle and the fickle alchemy between spirit and hope. Chain Gang All-Stars has already begun to capture the attention of the nation and critics. The novel was recently shortlisted for the 2023 National Book Award. My fingers are crossed for Nana. Please help me welcome Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah to the Texas Book Festival.
Thank y'all so much. You can hear me okay? How are we doing today, Texas? I love it. This means a lot to me. Y'all might not know, but maybe you do. We have one of the greatest living poets right here to my left, so please, big hand for Roger. He told you a little bit, but yeah, I was teaching in Syracuse in the MFA program. I got a chance to teach a book called King Me, and I was afraid to teach poetry, to be honest with you. Not because I didn't think I could do it, I didn't know how my students would take it. I didn't know if I could hold the weight properly. We ended up having an incredible class, and because I was working on that, my syllabus and my lesson plans, I'm like a lesson planner, so I have a whole thing. We watched videos of Roger, and he has this one particular talk. It's about the work of art in the age of Ferguson, Baltimore, and you added one because another Black person had just been killed, since he had written the essay. And I can't tell you, bro, how many times I've referenced that essay. Because every time someone asks me, why is your work so violent about it? How do you do it ethically? Every single time I think, this is what Roger Reeves said, and this is a lighthouse to me. So I'm super grateful, and it's special, so I really appreciate this moment right now. And thank you. I'm gonna read, but first I want to start off and just say something else pretty earnest. Here in Austin, Texas, actually yesterday, I think I found the love of my life. Have y'all heard of KG Barbecue? Oh my God. Even as I was enjoying a lamb rib, I was feeling like the feeling. I don't know if you've ever been in like a long distance relationship, and they're not about to leave yet, but they're gonna leave in like 4 hours or like the next day. And even as you're like enjoying spending the time, you're like, oh my God, we're about to be so far away from each other. I fly later on today, and it's like a deep heartache I'm feeling at the moment. So shout out to KG Barbecue. I'm gonna miss you. All right, so I'm gonna get into the book. This is my second book. It's called Chain Gang All Stars. It's about an imagined future in which convicted wards of state can opt out of a sentence of at least 25 years and participate in death matches. It took me a long time to write, about 7 years. And in fact, the first time I was here in Texas, I was like 27. And I remember when that book was out, a big part of like the story about me was like, he's only 27-year-old, he's a wonderkind, blah, blah, blah. And I remember feeling like, I wish they would talk about my age a little bit less, you know. And now I'm 32. They don't talk about my age at all. And I'm like, well, I guess maybe I took that for granted. I'm gonna read a little bit from the beginning of this book. I say the beginning and not the prologue because I once did a canvas on Twitter randomly saying, when you guys see prologue in a book, you definitely read it, right? The results were varied at best. If you are one of the people who skips the prologue, I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just wondering, when you listen to music, do you start the song like 47 seconds in, or is this a quirk you reserve only for reading? All right, last little piece of instruction. Sorry, I'm like just stalling because I enjoy being with you. I've been doing this thing. I think I could try to do it here. You think if I raise my hand, you guys could say like something on command? You guys think you could say something on command? Like, yeah. All right, so let's try it. The word would be bishop. So 1, 2, 3. Bishop. Okay, do it just like that, but like way better. Okay? Let's practice one more time. 1, 2, 3. Bishop. Woof. Chills. This is the beginning of the book, the not prologue. It's our introduction to the protagonist. Her name is Thurwar, and she's just been put into these carceral death matches. The freeing of Melancholia Bishop. She felt their eyes, all those executioners. Welcome, young lady, said Mickey Wright, the premier announcer for Chain Gang All Stars, the crown jewel in the criminal action penal entertainment program. Why don't you tell us your name? His high boots were planted in the turf of the battleground, which was long and green, stroked with cocaine white hash marks like a divergent football field. It was Super Bowl weekend, a fact that Wright was contractually obligated to mention between every match that evening. Oh, my name. She noticed her own steadiness and felt a dim love for herself. Strange. She counted herself wretched for so long, but the crowd seemed to appreciate her boldness. They cheered, though their support was edged with a brutal irony. They looked down on this black woman dressed in the gray jumpsuit of the incarcerated. She was tall and strong. They looked down on her, the tight coils of black hair on her head. They looked down gleefully. She was about to die. They believed this the way they believed in the sun and the moon, the air they breathed. Feisty, Wright said with a grin. Maybe that's what we should call you. Little Miss Feisty. My name is Loretta Thurwar, she said. She looked at the people all around her. There were so many of them, so many ways of humans all around her who would never be the object of such cruel attention, would never know how it made you feel both tiny and all-powerful. How the thrum of thousands was so loud, so constant, it could disappear from your ears, but continue to roar as something felt in the body. Thurwar gripped the weapon she'd been given. Thin, spiraling corkscrew with a cherry wood handle. Light and simple. Not Little Miss Feisty then, Wright said, walking a wide orbit around her. That's probably for the best, Loretta. He stepped toward his box. I hate wasting good names anyway. He laughed and the crowd echoed him. Well, Loretta Thurwar, he threw his playful condescension directly at her, chopping her first name into 3 hard syllables, using a sing-song child's voice for her last. Welcome to the battleground, baby. There was an electric cough in the air, and Thurwar was pulled down so forcefully, she feared for a moment her arm had been dislocated at the shoulder. Kneeling, not knowing what else to do, she started to laugh, chuckling first, then deep laughter. The feeling of whole that came from the magnetic implants in her arms was actually one of gentle massage under the skin. She could wiggle her fingers freely, but her wrists were glued to the platform, the ridiculousness of it all. She laughed until she fell out of breath, then laughed some more. The bells began to sound. Wright screamed into the air, "Please rise for Her Majesty!" He ran the rest of his way to his announcer's box. The crowd stood on their feet. They held themselves still and erect for her. She walked onto the full football field, aluminum alloy on her arms, braids that stopped at the back of her neck, exposed shoulders, each tattooed with the Whole Market trademark logo. A series of rods jutted out from her chest guard and circled her muscled abdomen to form a sleek cage. It was a custom creation. Thurwar had watched, even cheered, the first time she'd seen that the metallic pieces, initially thought to be exclusively defensive, were more. She'd been watching, huddled with the others in her cell block around the streaming video feed, when the woman had removed 2 of the rods from her guard and pressed them into Slingshot Bob's eyes, and now Thurwar was seeing them up close. This was Melancholia Bishop's final fight. Bishop had made it. She had done what no woman before her had done, survived 3 years on the circuit, 3 years of slamming down her hammer, Haso Maha, and swiping her mace, Vega. 3 years conquering souls. Drowned King County's very own Queen of the Damned. All she had in her hands was her helmet, Melody's helm, Crusader style, made of tin with a gold cross down its middle. The Annihilator. The bad news bitch, the death songstress herself. The 7th bell rang, the people screamed. For years, this had been their sacred ritual. The 7 bells of Melancholia Bishop. They'd seen her wipe scum off the earth. They'd seen her kill women and men who they'd once claimed to love. Now she stood and looked at them for the last time. Soon she would be free. Melancholia! Bishop. Melancholia! Bishop. Melancholia! The crowd chanted, her brown eyes explored the bleachers. Then she raised the helm above her head. Once it was on, she was home. Melancholia! Bishop. Melancholia! Bishop. Melancholia! Bishop. For the last time ever! Wright cheered, please help me welcome the winningest woman to ever step on the battleground. The mistress of the murder ballad, the sacred sweetheart, the crusader. The baddest the planet has ever seen. Your very own Melody Melancholia Price. Your very own, Thurwar thought, rattled by the force of love that exploded from the bleachers. They loved her so, and still, this woman, despite it all, belonged to none of them. She had an aura about her that made it clear. It was enough to push Thurwar's eyes down to the ground, as if the woman in front of her truly were royalty. Thurwar watched, bowed in her keep, an impossible power in front of her, the hammer, the mace. On one side of the field, there was a knight in her armor. The other, there was Thurwar in a jumpsuit, a corkscrew slick and clammy hands. Thanks, guys. Good job.
Testing, there we go. Let you get settled. Great reading.
I need my tea, like, whoa.
I know, man. I didn't know you was going to get, I was like, wow.
The environment made me like go for a little bit more. I couldn't see the crowd. The stage lights are bright. You guys did great, though. Incredible.
Well, it's interesting. I want to actually start with something that the chanting and the crowd sort of through. One of the things that is I see in the book is naming. Naming is really, really important, right? And I can think about sort of, there's the scholar and critic Judith Butler who says that we can be harmed because we can be addressed. right? And the idea of like addressing and harm. And so I was wondering what naming for you does in this book, because names are throughout this, even in the brands and things like that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I have like an affinity. Like I didn't realize this, but someone brought up, because even in my first book, the protesters who have a pretty radical protest type, if people read it, they might know they're called namers. I think I'm very aware of like the process of naming and what a name means, because in America at least, my name is like particular. And I can like remember prior to book stuff, like my name was a conversation. It was my icebreaker, my default icebreaker. Every time I said my name, it'd be like, what? Nana? Like, what? Nah. Or someone would be like, oh, Nana. Like, you know, it'd be a whole thing. And I even kind of miss it, to be honest. Like, in Ghana, for example, like my name was like Michael Michelson, like the most basic name.
Michael
No offense to the Michaels or whatever. But I'm not, and I don't want to be Michael. But now, you know, people like kind of are familiar with it, or at least when I meet new people, it's often in the context of something like this. But I've always been aware of it for that reason, I think.
Okay.
And I don't have like another name. Like both my parents who were born in Ghana, they have their African names, but then their American names are Dennis and Jane. And they didn't, they didn't give us like that same thing. So I've always had it. So I've thought about it always. But then once you start doing the research or start thinking about how oppression works, I think what you just said was really brilliant. It's also like a systematic and like default part of oppressing a people to like recategorize them in their own mind's eye and in the system's eye. And oftentimes you take away their name, give them whether it's in the prison system, a state ID. In the case of the Holocaust, it's a number. We have like a lot of those things. So and then we try our best to keep people's names alive, because it's a way of like capturing their essence often. And so again, with the extrajudicial murder of Black people in this country, it's become a process to uplift these names of these people who have suffered these sort of tragedies. So I think I was very aware of all those pieces like together. And then in the context of Chain Gang, right in the beginning, they're trying to indoctrinate, bring someone into the fold. Here's your new name. And Third War, even though she's sort of given up on life, is like, no.
She keeps her name.
She resists it. And so that's a way of taking power in a small way that was almost automatic for her. But then also the other characters who do receive their names, it's almost like they take what was meant to make them part of a system and they own it. They kind of find a way to take power from it that way. And again, you know, we have examples. Black people know how to do that too. Like you can call us this name to degrade us, but we made it something familiar, something just for us. And so I want to have both sides of that kind of coin.
Love that. Something else that the naming brings, even I love that I love the like turning the book into a performance, which you did here with us, which is the way in which audiences, sort of particularly at sporting events, right, in this hardcore sport, there's a type of intimacy that's made in the audience, right? And one of the things that I think you do so well in this book is there's a relationship between, I think it's Will and Emily. And there are people, Will and Emily are two characters who are married, and they are sort of fanatics of hardcore sports, the Chain Gang All-Stars. And there's something that you do that I think is really interesting. You highlight how cruelty also creates intimacy for them. Can you talk to us about like the sort of relationship between cruelty and intimacy?
That's such a good question. I really like it. I appreciate it. It makes me feel smart.
You are smart, brother. You are brilliant.
I think that, no, but there's something, it's really important, like, and it speaks to something I think about a lot. There's very few things that can bring, okay, let's use the example of sports, right? Like, sports, oftentimes, they become like this sort of metaphor for like this like regional like war. You know, our like warriors are fighting your warriors in whatever context. And I say this as a sports fan, a big sports fan, even though my relationship has gotten more and more complicated as I'm like more aware of like the circus nature of it in terms of like breads and circuses. When your team crushes another team, you feel like this like bonding with us, because like we all look at this thing we've done together. Look how we've destroyed these other people. You're a fan of a boxer or whatever, like look how like we are taking delight in our ability to like conquer, to destroy. And I think there's something particular about like in community, like something that might be considered wrong or too much can become accepted, and that like in this circle we all accept this thing, and we kind of have intimacy is born because it's sort of like we feel protected or safe with each other because you and me are both we both see the whatever virtue that has arisen through this violence. You could think of a lot of examples now on like a global scale too, where people feel like emboldened and encouraged by their particular taste for a certain kind of violence, usually in what they perceive as defense or something. And so there is like absolutely a intimacy and a bonding and a connection, sometimes like almost like this familiar family type thing that happens in terms of feeling as though we have won the violence. So that's something I'm really interested in. I could probably say more, but like that's just a great question because I think whether I'm conscious of it or not, I'm always noticing the times where somebody who's not a violent person can be compelled to violence. Like I've never jumped anyone, but I've had friends who like have jumped people before, and they're not like that. But when the violence arises, something they are. And I've never jumped anyone, but like I've been on a basketball team where they did something like almost, maybe because like we felt like, oh, they did something racist or weird to us, and now who knows, so there's like something that happens. It's like I think violence is a great binder of people, which is why it's so pervasive and why it's like a virus that it's a disease that spreads quicker than any virus in the world.
Thinking about violence, but like shifting slightly, there was something, it connects to the naming too. Everything in these characters' lives is trademarked, right? So if you read the novel, everything has a trademark, and you use the TM symbol, right? To show, so there's from their pillows that they sleep on to the clothes to their weapons. For example, the Remington Sleep Cannon Memory Foam Pillow, or the weapons and clothes sponsored by Whole Market, which we love here in Austin. And I love that. I was like, oh, go get him.
Well, is Whole Foods like super big here?
It started here.
Oh,
the Whole Foods started right down the street. Right down the street. This is the birthplace of Whole Foods. I
don't want no smoke. I'm just
love
saying.
Love the critique.
Look into their investments. Look at where they sold some of their stuff. It's fine. Everything's okay. It's not, but whatever.
I said, it's as if you want us, the reader, to constantly contend with the body of these characters in relationship to commodification, marketing, and the economy of spectatorship, sovereignty, and ownership. Or am I off? Why do you brand so much of the world in your novel? There's a way in which, like, we're all sitting on brands right now, but we're not thinking about it, but you make me think about the brands. Why?
It's a really important question. Again, one that's, like, speaking to, like, that, like, obsession of mine I'm a little bit more aware of.
Okay.
I feel, like, really afraid of how much we're willing to sell to, like, whatever corporate entity, whatever aspect of our life. It's so hard. And, again, like, everything is, again, it's weird to say that in context where it's, like, someone sponsored this.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100. But it's like, and that's great, and I think that's important. But it's like we're so comfortable with like almost every aspect of our life having some like corporate sort of like hand on it, and that feels really like scary to me. Mm-hmm. I've been saying this like for a while, and like I really feel like we should bring like the term like sellout back in style. A lot, especially as someone who's like sometimes in the public eye. Like I want that to be like a meaningful threat to be called something like that. I think that's important. I think that as it is now, we just never care what anyone does because it seems like if you can get commerce, if you can make money, that's okay no matter what. Yeah. And so I'm just super interested and super aware of how much I could be watching whatever. I could be watching basketball, but somehow like I have to be thinking about cars. I could go outside. Like it's impossible to go outside and spin around and not be bombarded with several brands. And so to me, it just means I'm obsessed with it because I can feel like the walls of like corporate existence like pressing down further and further and further. And it's like pretty soon, like to go to school, you're gonna have to tattoo Whole Foods on your neck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm just poking fun at them now, but. You know what I'm saying? I feel it. I and it's like I remember the moment when COVID first I was gonna say when COVID first dropped.
When they dropped that first album, COVID. I love that.
But you remember the former president was like, here's the guy from Walmart, and here's the guy from so-and-so, and I was like, okay, like, why is the CEO of Walmart the guy?
Exactly.
You know, and it was
Exactly.
a CEO from they weren't even all like companies that could directly help you, just like these, there's
Brands.
5 white guys, probably like 1 white woman, and like, that was like, I was supposed to feel safe. Anyways.
No, I love it.
Oh, great. CEO of Walmart's here. Don't worry, guys.
You're not gonna die.
We're good. Anyways,
Yeah.
you get it though. You get
No,
what I'm
I
saying.
do. I do. I love that. So one of the things too that I picked up on something that I'm really interested in are moments when marginalized people, particularly Black people, are outside the arena. When they're in these moments of repose, not dead, but repose. And you have these moments when they're on the marching, right? And they're in these tents. But there's also these moments of intimacy among them, and they try to sort of make moments of subverting their always being seen in these moments of intimacy. And what I think is really subversive about the book, people will focus on the violence, right, of the book, but there's actually really long stretches in the book where it's just them being with each other.
I really appreciate that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's really true. If you think about it, there's probably like 4 or 5 big violent set pieces. It's a 300-page book. So I never thought about a book that big, but it's required it. And like they're human beings who are being put into a really harsh space and harsh context, as are the people in our current prisons. And again, I hope it's like hasn't been lost that this book is really thinking about our actual carceral America, our actual carceral state, and all the injustices it administers every single day. And I think that a lot of the job of the book, or like especially the characters in the world, is to like, with Chain Gang All-Stars, the sport in the book is like trying to get you to view these people as like these like action figures. And I needed all those moments to remind myself, the reader, everyone, that these are human beings. And what level of like violence are you comfortable with? And again, I think we have this sickness in us all, myself included, that when we think of the word justice, all our imaginations can conjure is an image of like a man with a gun, someone with the capacity to harm. And I think the carceral state is one of the administrators of like that sort of like poisoning of the water that puts us in that position. And so I want myself and others to like start pushing back against that. What could justice look like? What could it be like outside of this context of carcerality, which is like a gun in your head or I put you in a cage? How can we grow beyond that? Because, sorry, this like I'm like using this to like talk to about other things, but the prison system as it does completely destroys our ability to respond compassionately to mental health crises, for example. It completely destroys our ability to respond with grace to the disease of drug addiction.
That's right.
It individualizes and criminalizes systemic issues like poverty. And so by having these long stretches of just seeing these characters in their lives as not gladiators, you're reminded, wait, that's a person who had a problem and it resulted in them doing quote unquote crime. And how could we have caught/helped them better? How could we have shown them more grace? Not just because we're like, haha, trying to be nice, but maybe it would heal us all.
Beautiful, man. That's beautiful.